that people aren't being told. There's this mysterious element, 115, element 115, and this is how these crafts work, and they work on this, anti-gravitics and all this amazing technology. So he comes out with this information. He brings John Lear, Gene Huff out, and they see these test crafts come out in the sky. They film it, and to this day, this is very important. To this day, he has never denied these statements. Bob Lazar has actually said he wished he never came out with this information. He could have capitalized on it. He could have sold the rights for movies. He's never wanted to. He's kind of wished that he'd never talked about it. Obviously, he's probably afraid for his life and doesn't want to go any further with it. But at the same time, he came out with some just mind-boggling information. So, of course, what happened after that? We know that this place became absolutely famous. Leading up to there, it's called the Extraterrestrial Highway. You got Little Alien Inn, and many people have talked about having experiences over by that area, by Area 51, just experiences coming into their hotel rooms when you go look over at Little Alien Inn. And we're actually going to be talking to Jordan again for him to tell you guys about his experience that he had over there and what his friends had gone through at Little Alien Inn. And everybody that's gone over there and spoke over there or presented over there has gotten their picture on the wall. So Jordan's got us on a little mission today to find his picture on the wall and show you guys it. But yeah, it's really beautiful out here. If you hop into a car, it's about 2 hours outside of Las Vegas, and as you can see over here on the mountainside, it's absolutely gorgeous. It's very beautiful. We have Jordan Maxwell on the line with us now, and I just got back from Nevada on our desert road trip, going up over into Rachel to check out Area 51, Little Alien Inn, and all the great spots out in the desert there that you can see, the extraterrestrial highway and everything. Jordan, can you tell everybody what's so special about Area 51?
Well, first of all, thank you for having me on again. And, I've had quite a few experiences out in that area called Area 51. A lot of people are familiar with that term, Area 51. But most people don't know where it really came from. There is no Area 49 or Area 50 or Area 53. There's only an Area 51. Well, it's a military base. It's a highly, highly secretive, very secretive military base for developing high technology, airplanes, jets, etc., and UFOs, and God knows what else, everything else out there that you don't know that they're doing. The reason it was called Area 51, I talked with some people who were working there, old timers who have worked there, and they came up with something interesting I never thought about. Because in the military, when you are in trouble, if your ship is sinking, or especially if you're in a plane and it's heading to the ground, you call for help. And when you call for help in the military, you say Mayday, Mayday. Mayday means serious trouble, serious problems. It's a Mayday call. Well, when is Mayday? Well, it's on May 1st. What month is May? 5. And the first day of May is 1. So Area 51 is Mayday. Mayday as a military term for trouble.
We're in front of the world-famous Area 51 here in Nevada. Now, the interesting thing about this place is that Dr. Stephen Greer has said that this place is called Dreamland by UFO insiders. Now, if you were to go across that line, you'd be arrested, and you're not allowed to go anywhere near it. But it's said that out there, that there has been some very classified UFO work that's been done, and of course, as we mentioned, Bob Lazar was the first one to talk about this. But somewhere out there, you can just imagine that there is these super advanced extraterrestrial crafts, and the people in the area have reported all sorts of different experiences. And of course, we know about the experience that Jordan Maxwell had with Paul Tice. But this is absolutely incredible to think about the type of technologies that could be back there, or Zeta Reticulan aliens. So cool, right? Now, Jordan, when you were out in the desert with your friends, something very interesting happened. You guys actually encountered an extraterrestrial presence in the sky. Can you tell everybody about that?
My dear friends, Sean David Martin, uh, John Lear, some of the other guys that were famous, their names are famously connected to Area 51. Well, I knew them, but I'd never been up to. First of all, you can't go in Area 51, that's a military base, but just outside the base, there's a little Mickey Mouse little establishment, a little town, and that's very little. There's almost nothing there, but it's a very little place called Rachel, Nevada. And so Rachel, Nevada is as close to Area 51 as you're going to get because it's right on the other side of the mountain from Area 51. And so if you're in Rachel at night, you can see all kinds of strange UFOs and strange stuff going on that's highly classified and you're not supposed to know anything about it. And so that's why nothing really happens at Rachel at night until after midnight. You go out after midnight, and then you begin to see all the strange UFOs and strange stuff going on. And then they moved it because too many people started getting wise to it and started, being out there from all over the world. Japanese, Italians, from all over the world, people started coming and even renting buses to go out to Rachel and to go out to the famous mailbox, the famous mailbox where the tourists go to watch UFOs at night. And everybody would go out, they rent buses. There'd be, sometimes 100 people out there on the side of the highway at 1 o'clock in the morning. And there would be all kinds of strange lights in the sky and UFO activity. Until whoever owns, it's not the government, not the U.S. government, but who actually owns Area 51, we don't know. But we know it's not thoroughly government. It's somebody's out there on government property, but it's not the U.S. government. The President of the United States does not have clearance to go to Area 51. So I should tell you something about if it's a U.S. government facility. No, it is not. And the President of the United States, even though it's supposedly on a military base, Nellis Air Force Base, the President of the United States does not have permission to go to Area 51. So I should tell you something. So somebody's out there doing it, but they're not. The President is not. It's a big club, and he ain't in it. And so. I've been out there many, many times, and I've had enormous experiences out there. Back in the late 80s, I had a friend who worked at General Motors as middle management, and he was getting married, and I lived in Los Angeles, and he lived in Palmdale, which is about 50 miles north of Los Angeles. It's not even in the Los Angeles County. It's 50 miles north of Los Angeles. Called Palmdale. And so my friend who worked at General Motors was getting married, and he wanted me to be the best man at his wedding. So when I agreed, the idea was that the day of his wedding, the Saturday of his wedding, I was to go up to his place in Palmdale and hang out with him for the whole day while his girlfriend, her mother, and all of her girlfriends were getting ready for the wedding. All we had to do was just sit there and hang out together, and so that's what we did. We just were sitting in the front room having a beer and shooting the breeze and talking about everything, UFOs and all that kind of stuff, while the girls and the mother were getting prepared for the wedding that night, and. So the mother and the girls decided to go out to the market. And so they went out to the market, and when they came back, we were sitting there, we saw them through the front window, we were sitting in the sofa, and we saw them drive up. But there was an old beat-up car following them and parked behind them. And this old guy got out, and of course, my friend and I were thinking, who is this? Who is this guy? And so They came in, and the girl he was marrying, the girl said to us, this guy met us in the market and came over to me. This is what she told us in front of him. She said, this man met us in the market, and he came over to me and said, you were getting married. I know you're getting married tonight, and the best man at your wedding is at your home right now, is at your house, and I need to talk to him. I have something to tell him. And she said, how do you know I'm getting married? He said, I know who you're marrying. I know all about your marriage. I'm just telling you, you have a man there, a friend of yours, who's going to be the best man in your wedding, and I need to talk to him. I know he's there, and you know who I'm talking about. So she said he was not a threat. He didn't appear to be a threat, just an old man in an old beat-up car. But he was interesting because he did know about the marriage, and so she let him follow her home. So I said to him, I said, well, that's me you're talking about. So what have you got to tell me? And he said, I've been told to contact you and tell you, and they told me that you would be here and that you would be in the wedding tonight. And they told me to tell you that a year and a half from now, 1 year and a half from now, you're going to be out on the desert, and you're going to have an extraordinary UFO experience. And the experience is for you. You're the one that needs to have the experience, and it's going to be extraordinary. But that's not for a year and a half. But there will be two other people with you, because they, who are telling me to tell you this, they want two witnesses. They want a man and a woman. They don't want all women or all men. They want a man and a woman to be a witness to what you're going to see. And they're going to see it too, but the experience is for you. And then he says, so I said to him, well, you know, my friend I'm up here with today, he and I usually go out, you know, in the desert up here in Palmdale. Sometimes we'll go out and look for UFOs. And he said, no, this is not going to be in California. This is going to be east of California, and you're going to be way out in a desert. And I mean way out. You're going to be really out in the desert. And you're going to have this experience a year and a half from now. But there's going to be a woman in the car, and you're going to be driving the car. And there's going to be a woman in the front seat and a man in the back seat. And they're going to be there only as witnesses to testify what happened to you. And he said, and so then he said, and that's not going to happen for a year and a half, so don't worry about it. But just be prepared. A year and a half from now, there's going to be a woman in the front seat and a man in the back, and you're going to have one hell of an experience with extraterrestrials, because they want you, he said, they want you to know that they are here. You believe that there are extraterrestrials here. You think there are. But they want you to know it for a fact. So they're going to put it in your face. They're going to show you that they are here. And so he said, but that won't happen for a year and a half, so don't worry about it. So that was it. So my friend got married, and that was it. And then about a year and a half later, there was a UFO conference, a big expo in Mesquite, Nevada in 1989, December of 1989. So it was probably mid 1987 when this first experience happened, meeting this guy. Well, a year and a half later was December 1989. I remember that distinctly because the experience was so extraordinary. So in 1989, December, first week in December, there was a big conference, a UFO conference in Mesquite, Nevada. And I was speaking there as one of the speakers. And so my friend, Paul Tice, who's the publisher down in San Diego, he publishes all this kind of books on UFOs and extraterrestrial stuff too. So he wanted to go. So, and then my lady friend in Hawaii, Ivy West, she's a radio talk show host. in Hawaii. She wanted to go, so she flew over. And so the idea was is that Paul and I, uh, in San Diego, I was in San Diego, Paul and I would drive up and pick her up at the airport and then drive over to Mesquite, which is just east, I don't know, maybe 20 or 30 miles east of Las Vegas, Mesquite, Nevada. And so we would pick her up at the LAX airport and then drive over to Mesquite for the conference. And so we did. Well, on Sunday morning, after the conference was over, everybody's leaving, including us. So we get in the car and we're driving back, the three of us. And as we're coming back into Las Vegas, because Mesquite's on the east of Las Vegas, as we're coming back in Sunday morning to Las Vegas, it suddenly dawned on me. I said, "Have either one of you ever been up to Area 51?" No. Would you like to go? Absolutely. Let's go. So I had been doing radio in Las Vegas. Las Vegas knows me. I've done late night radio talk shows, talked about UFOs. I've given lectures galore, many, many lectures in Las Vegas on UFOs and all that kind of stuff. And so the people up at Rachel have heard me on the radio. And I'm talking about UFOs. Well, that's what they're into. So I used to get phone calls from the owners of the little alien restaurant and motel. They would call and say, "Why don't you come up and visit? You know, we listen to you on the radio. Why don't you come up and visit? And maybe we'll set up a lecture or something that you can come and give a little talk and a lecture up here and come up and see Area 51. Come up, enjoy the." And so I said, so they've asked me if to come up. So why don't we do it? And they said, "Let's do it." So I called them, and they said, "Yep, come up for sure. They'd be happy to have us." So we drive up. It's about a 2-hour drive north of Las Vegas up into the high desert. 2-hour drive at freeway speed. So that's way out there. And I think it's about 240, 250 miles north of Las Vegas. And that's out in the middle of nowhere. You know, in the middle of Nevada test range. And so when we get there, that late afternoon, they have there's no motel as such, but the people that own the restaurant and bar and restaurant, Little Alien, which is very famous, was Joe and Pat Travis, and Joe and Pat were my friends. They heard me on radio, and we've talked many times. And so what they've done out there, and they're still there today, is that they have mobile homes. They've got 5 or 6 mobile homes all lined up, and they rent out the rooms at night for passengers out in the middle of the desert in Nevada coming through in the middle of the night. If you need a motel, you can stop at a Little Alien and rent a room in one of their mobile homes. So we rented a room, and incidentally, the room number was 5-1, which is interesting. So we rented 5-1, and it was actually 2 rooms and a bathroom. And so then that night we had dinner, and then we stayed around, sitting around, talking with everybody, all the old timers. You know, they all come over to the Area 51. They all come over to the restaurant, Little Alien, and have beer and dinner and sit around and shoot the breeze and talk out in the middle of nowhere in the high desert. Well, it was very, very heavy overcast that night. Couldn't see a thing. Everywhere, across the whole sky was overcast. And so when they were closing about 11 o'clock, Paul and Ivy and I, we were wide awake, and so we asked, well, where do we go to see the UFOs? And Joe Travis had a very dry sense of humor. I just loved his humor. It was very dry. And he says, well, all you got to do is go out and sit in the parking lot. If they want to show themselves, they'll find you. You don't need to go looking for them. They already know you're here. So if they want you to see them, they'll show themselves. Don't worry about it. And if they don't want you to see them, you're never going to see them. And so Pat said to me, the wife, she said, well, if you want to go out tonight after midnight where the tourists go, it's called the Black Mailbox. That's the famous tourist attraction for Area 51. It's called the Black Mailbox. And she said, so go out there on the highway that you came in on and turn around and go south, going back toward Las Vegas. And watch your speedometer, because at exactly 19 miles, there'll be a marker, exactly at 19 miles. So watch your speedometer. And at that 19-mile point, there will be a big parking lot off the side of the road, and there's a big mailbox there. You won't be able to see it until until your car puts the lights on it. But there'll be a big mailbox there, and it's going to be black, and there's a big parking area there. And there's a road going out to the Area 51, the facility. So just park there by the mailbox and sit, and maybe something will happen. And maybe you'll see something, maybe you won't. But if you're going to, that's where all the tourists go. So that's what we did. So, okay, so we get in the car. It's about 11:30, get ready to close. And we're going to go back toward Las Vegas, go to the mailbox and see what happens. So we hit the road, we get out on the road, I'm driving, Ivy's in the front seat, woman's in the front seat, Paul's in the back, man in the back seat, just like I was told. And I turn left and go north. And nobody, Paul and Ivy, did not notice it, and I didn't either. I'm going north, not south. And we're looking at the speedometer, and as we're coming up on the 19 mile, Ivy said, wait a minute. She said go south back to Vegas. We've gone north. So I said, all right, look, why don't we just turn around? It's late. We'll turn around. We'll go home. We'll go back, and we'll stay over for a night or two, and we'll go out tomorrow night and do it right. So, okay, so we'll just stop here and turn around and go home. We'll go back to the mobile home. So as we stopped the car, it's heavily overcast. Can't see anything in the sky. But where we stopped the car, just by chance, there was a wide dirt road going out into the desert, and it was a well-kept road. It's not sandy, so you get stuck. No, it's a well-kept road, but it was just a dirt road going out into the desert. And for some reason, Ivy and Paul flipped out and said, "Let's drive out into the desert. Let's go out there and drive out a little bit." And I said, "No, thank you. I'm not going off this highway. My car is not designed for sand dunes and all that. So no, I'm not going anywhere." And they said, "Look at the road is beautiful. It's a very level, good road. Let's just go out a little bit." And I said, "No." Well, Paul and Ivy became really insistent. At least go out on the road a little bit. The boogeyman's not going to get you. It's not a military base. Let's just go out a little bit. And I don't know why they were so insistent. So I said, all right. So I drove out, and I go out about 2 blocks, and all of a sudden I got this horrible impression, this feeling, something was wrong, and I need to get out of here because I felt it. And I said, "Ivy, Paul, I'm feeling something that's very bad here, and we need to go. I'm not going to stay." And I turned the car around out on the desert and started to go back. And when I started to go back to the highway, Ivy and Paul, blew up and said, "Just stop the car and get out for a minute. We'll just get out for a minute." And I said, "I don't want to get out. I want to get out of here completely." And they said, "No, just stop the car for a minute. Nobody's going to hurt you, and we're all 3 here. Just get out for a minute." And I don't know why they kept insisting that. And so, all right, so we get out, and we shut the lights off in the car. Well, I don't know if you've ever been in the desert when it's totally overcast at midnight, because that's what dark is. I mean, you talk about dark, there is no light. at all, period. You are at the most strangest feeling to have no light whatsoever. You know the car is there, you're leaning on it, and you know the people are on the other side of the car. You can hear them, you know they're there, but you can't see nothing, period. Total black. And so when we got out, no more, we were not out of that car, I would say a minute, within the minute. And all of a sudden, the cloud, the heavy cloud overcast, the cloud opened up in an oval, a small oval, north of us. And any time you're in total darkness, any light at all, you see immediately. And so when it opened up, that cloud opened up a little bit. There was an opening in the cloud. You could see the stars and the moonlight coming through the cloud. And so Ivy was the first one. Ivy said, look, the cloud is opening up. And, we can see the stars. And when she said that, we looked up, and not only did the cloud open up, but two beautiful, gorgeous, bluish white, glowing bluish white, saucer-shaped things came through, and they weren't flying quickly. They were just barely moving, like they were just sliding, through the air very slow, and they came through that opening in the cloud. Two bluish white disc-shaped things making no sound whatsoever, period, nothing. And each one was about the size of a full moon in the sky. So they weren't little lights. No. This was full size, full moon size, two of them. And they slipped through. They opened up the clouds and came through the clouds. Well, as they came through the clouds opening, they were right under the cloud cover. So their light emanating from the vehicles was reflecting on the clouds above. And they were beautiful. They were gorgeous, bluish white, disc-shaped things. And I've never, it's just absolutely beautiful. And seeing the reflection on the clouds above them. And so we were stunned when we saw these two UFOs come through. But right behind them was 5 more. And as the 5 came in, the opening in the cloud got larger, and 5 more bluish white disc, glowing, full moon size. Now we have 7 full moon size, beautiful glowing disc, saucer shape, right over our heads. And I don't mind telling the world, I was absolutely frightened. It was a horrible and frightening experience to me. Not because of what I was seeing, but because of what I was feeling. Because these things gave off an otherworld, fearful feeling. You could just feel in your gut, this is very, very powerful presence here. I don't know who this is. I don't know where this has come from, but there are 7 bluish white glowing discs making no sound, and they have stopped. All of a sudden, they stopped over the top of us, and they're just sitting there. And it was frightening me, because I know this is highly intelligent. This is extremely high technology. And in my gut, I knew. I said to myself, this is not human. And then they started, all 7 of these saucers, in a blink of an eye, all moved around and into a circle. They blasted out to a circle in a blink of an eye, in a quarter of a second. Boom, they all moved out into a circle, a big circle. And then in an eighth of a tenth of a second, boom, they all came back together, but not touching. They all came back together in a smaller circle, but not touching. And then all of a sudden, in a tenth of a second, instantly, boom, they all went back out into a major big configuration and instantly come right back and didn't touch each other into the circle. So they were showing us what they could do, what their technology was capable of. whoever they are, whatever it is we were seeing, had tremendous technological advance where they could instantly blow up into a huge circle in the sky and then instantly within a tenth of a second come back together. And it was just an incredible aerial show of high technology. But it was scaring me. I was becoming more and more fearful because I realized this is highly intelligent. They're doing this to show us who they are and what they can do, and I don't know who it is, and I want to get out of here because it's frightening to me. Well, Paul and Ivy thought it was wonderful. They thought this was the most wonderful thing they've ever seen. It's like seeing Elvis for the first time or seeing Santa Claus. Everybody, they were jumping up. Oh my God, look at what they can do. Look at their technology, and aren't they beautiful? And they're making no sound. And they were jumping up and down. They loved it. Not me. I was scared, legitimately. So I got in the car and I said, "Get in the car, I'm leaving." And they knew I was serious. So they got in the car and they rolled the windows down and stuck their heads out so they could watch the show. Me, I'm going to get the hell out of here. So I turn on the engine, I flip on the lights, and I take off wide open. And as soon as I took off, both Ivy and Paul, they got their heads stuck out the window looking at what's going on. Me, I'm just getting out of there. And when I took off, Ivy and Paul totally went ballistic. Paul and Ivy were screaming. They were scared. They were literally frightened. And of course, I'm already frightened. And I'm doing the driving. Now I've got a woman next to me that's berserk. She's screaming. And Paul is not helping anything. He's screaming too. They were both very frightened. And I figured whatever it is that's scaring both of my friends, I'm already scared. All I want to do is get the hell out of here. But I stopped the car quickly and opened up the car door very quick, looked up, and all 7 of those saucers were down right over us. And now they're big, and they're right over us, and they're doing all kinds of maneuvers, incredible maneuvers. And they look like holograms that look like there was nothing solid there, but they were solid, but there was an electrical force field around that covered them so that, it was a very mysterious looking event. 7 UFOs, saucer-shaped things glowing with no sound, doing all kinds of extreme technical maneuvers. And so it scared me, and I just got back, I just shut the door and took off again. And I was very concerned that I was speeding back to the highway. I was very concerned I don't overshoot the highway, and go past the highway and end up out in the desert. So I skidded up I put the brakes on and skidded up to the highway. And as we pulled off onto the highway, now it's about 12:30, 1 o'clock, something like that at night. The moment we got on the highway, for some reason, all 3 of us felt relieved. The fear was gone. I don't know why, but all 3 of us remember that the fear that we were frightened to death was gone. And I know why. It's because I know that whoever this was in these ships, whoever they were, they have the ability to solicit from your mind fear. They can cause you electrically to feel things. They can frighten you. And it's purely an emotional reaction to an electrical force field, something that whoever they were in these ships were able to cause you to be frightened out of your wits. And there's some sort of a technology to somehow or another get into your brain and get into your human system and frighten you. But once we hit the highway, the fear was gone. And we got out, all 3 of us, 1 o'clock in the morning, out in the middle of nowhere in the Nevada desert. And we were standing there, and I remember that scene so well. every emotion that a human is capable of was blowing through us. Not flowing, blowing through us. It was an emotional laughing with tears, fear, beautiful, awesome, crazy, anything you could think of that was blowing through our brains and our bodies, because it was such an awesome experience. And by the time we turned around to see the saucers had gone back out into the desert and gone back into, I don't remember exactly, but they shot up into the sky and they were gone. And we stood out there on the highway for about 10 minutes shaking, trying to figure out what in the hell did we just see? Was this human technology? No, it was not. There's no doubt in our minds this was not of our world, as we could feel it. And the things they were doing, we can't do in aircraft. And so we drove back to Area 51 about 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning. And we go to our motel and our mobile home, number 51. And when you walk in, you walk directly into the bathroom. And then on each side of the bathroom are two rooms. One room had two beds, and one room had one bed. On the right was one bed. So I told Paul, I said, Paul, why don't you take the one bedroom, and Ivy and I'll take the other one. And so we were all scared, and we were talking that night before we went to bed. Paul's in his room, and we're in ours, and we were talking about what in the world was that we saw tonight. What a hell of an experience that was. And so the next morning, I get up, and Paul and Ivy are already up and gone, and they're over at the restaurant having breakfast. So I go over there, and there's Paul and Ivy sitting at a big table with a bunch of people all around, and they're talking to them. So naturally, I thought they're telling the townspeople what we saw last night. And so I sat down, and then I found that no, they're not talking about what we saw last night. They're talking about the alien that came in our room last night. That's what they're talking about. And Paul is explaining what this alien looked like when it came into the room, what it did. And Ivy was in my room. She woke up and could see something going on. It was glowing, a greenish color, some kind of a light glowing, and think something was going on in the other bedroom. From where she was in my bedroom, she could look over. It was just inside of a trailer, so it's not that big. And she could see something was going on in Paul's room. And she said when she opened her eyes, saw something was going on, immediately a little red light, very small, like a pin light, shot over the top of her. It came from Paul's room and came in and hovered over her. And she said when it came in, this little light hovered over her, she was totally paralyzed. She could only draw just enough breath to breathe. Only that. She could not speak, move, or do anything. She was totally paralyzed. And she laid there, paralyzed, trying to breathe, looking at Paul's room. Something was going on over there. And it was a green light. Well, Paul was talking about the alien who came in that night and what happened to him. Now, there's a video out there on the web, and it's called Alien 51, not Area 51. It's called Alien 51, and it's out there for free. Go out there and go on YouTube and type in Alien 51, and it's about a 90-minute video done by Anthony Helder about Area 51 and about the UFOs and all that kind of thing, about aliens. But in it, toward the 2/3 of the way in to Alien 51, there's an interview that Paul and I were out there at the Area 51 later, a year or so later, and we were talking to the people and what happened to us. And it was decided that we ought to go outside, and everybody go outside because it was warm at night as an evening. The sun hasn't gone down completely yet, and it was just perfect. And so we will go outside and do an interview for television. So they brought brought the cameras out and the lighting out, and Paul and I went out there and sat in and all the people in the restaurant came out and sat all around. It was really a really interesting little group gathering just by chance. We were, and Paul and I were being interviewed. What happened? So I would suggest that you go to YouTube and find the video called Alien 51 and go through it if you want to watch the whole thing, but go through it until you see me and Paul Tice. And Paul then explains what the alien looked like, what happened. He even takes you over to our room and shows you exactly what happened, what the alien looked like, what he did. And so it would be better just listen to Paul because he's the one that had the experience, and there's no need me telling you. Go watch it yourself. Alien 51, and Paul and I are being interviewed, and he tells you all about the alien who came in the room that night. And so anyway, we come back now. Now a couple of days later, we decided to come back to L.A. Actually, Paul and I were living in San Diego, and so we brought Ivy West back to the airport. So she caught a plane going back to Hawaii, and we went home to San Diego. About a week later or 2 weeks later, I decided I wanted to go back up to Area 51 by myself, and I don't want anybody knowing where I'm going. I don't want anybody knowing where or what I'm doing. So I rented a Chrysler convertible, and I drove up for a long weekend. I went back up to stay with Joe and Pat and rent a room. And my idea is I want to go back out to where I had that experience, but go out there and take pictures and relive that experience, but do it in the late afternoon, not at night. I'm not going anywhere at night out there with that kind of stuff going on out there in the desert. But I do want to go out there in the afternoon and take some pictures and reminisce in my mind what happened. So I drove up there to Area 51, to Rachel, Nevada, by myself. Nobody knew. And Chrysler convertible, and I drove out to the road 19 miles north of Little Alien, 19 miles, and there was a road right there. I remember it well, so I drove out there on that road. I took a lot of pictures. I will send you some pictures. So I drove out on that road about 2 blocks, and I stopped, and I turned the car around, and I got out, and it was late afternoon, so the sun wasn't up, but it was still light. And I just thought about what I had experienced at this spot, a couple, 3 weeks ago. And so I sat in the back seat of the car on the back hood of the car, with my feet in the back seat. And I talked with the spirit. I talked with them. I said, look, I know that you're here. You don't have to prove it to me. I know you're here. I don't know who you are. I don't know where you've come from. But I know what I saw here a couple of weeks ago was not human. I know that. And I know that you're here, and I know that you can hear me. I just have to assume with that kind of technology, you know where I am, and you know you can hear me. So if you can hear me, I'm asking you, I'm saying to you that if I'm supposed to fulfill some kind of destiny in my life as a teacher or whatever I'm supposed to do, if it is given to me to do something, then I will do it, as long as I don't feel frightened or challenged or fearful. But if there is something in my life that I am to do, I will do it. And I said to them, I know that you're hearing me, and I have 2 favors to ask of you. If you're hearing me, 2 favors I'm asking. I'll do whatever I'm supposed to do. But two things. One, I do not want to be abducted and go anywhere. I don't want to go anywhere to be abducted. I want to be right here. I'm perfectly happy to be right here. I don't want to go anywhere with you. So don't abduct me. Don't take me anywhere. And two, do not frighten me in my bedroom. I got a bad heart. I'm getting older and I can't handle some of the stuff that I've seen, but I really don't want to wake up in the middle of the night, and frightened. So don't scare me. I got a bad heart, and don't take me anywhere. But if it's something I am destined to do, then I will do whatever I need to do. And that was it. So I got back in the car and I drove back and I stayed a couple nights with Joe and Pat and enjoyed myself. And then I came back to San Diego. And about a week or so later, Paul Tice calls me and says, Jordan, I heard about a girl named Kirin, Kirin, Kirin. And he said, I heard that she's a past life regressionist and that she's very, very good. And that I want to go, why don't you make an appointment and go see her and tell me if she's as good as I've heard. And I said, well, if you're so interested, why don't you go? I'm not interested. And he said, no, you're closer and you're right down by her, and she's on Coronado Island. And he gave me the address and the phone number. So I said, all right, I'll make an appointment. So I called Karen, a really incredibly sweetheart young girl. And so I made an appointment to go down on Coronado Island because I'm in Rancho Bernardo in San Diego. So I drive down there that day, and I get to her house, and I go in, and she has me lay on this exercise cot kind of thing, that the chiropractors have for you to lay on. And then she has you take all the metal off, any rings, any jewelry, or any change, anything that's metal, take it off of you, and lie down on this table, like a massage table. And so I am, and so she's talking and lighting some candles. She's lighting some candles and preparing for whatever it is she's going to do, this past life regression, whatever that is. And but she's a very sweet girl, and so I'm just laying there on the table watching her as she's lighting the candles, and she's talking to someone. And at first I thought she was talking to the cat or to an animal or maybe somebody in the kitchen or something. And so after a few minutes of listening, after a few seconds of listening to her, the thing she was saying was strange. She's carrying on a conversation with somebody, and I'm not hearing any conversation coming back, just her talking. So I said to her, I said, Karen, who are you talking to? And she said, oh, I'm sorry. And she kind of laughed. She said, I'm sorry. I'm talking to your friends who brought you here. And I said, what do you mean? She said, well, your friends who brought you here. I'm talking to them. And I said, who brought me to your house? She said, no. Who brought you to the earth? Your friends have brought you from somewhere out there in space. You've been brought here. And I'm talking to the ones who have brought you here. At least that's what they're telling me, that they brought you here. And that's what they're telling me. I'm just telling you what they said. I don't know. Well, and so I would interject here in the story to tell you, I'm not saying, and I'm not validating any of this. I'm just telling you what she said. I'm not saying this is exactly what is going to happen. No. I'm just relating what she said to me. She said that I'm talking to your friends who brought you here. And I said to her, brought me to your house? She said, no, brought you to the earth. You've been brought here to do something for them. Well, that goes along with many stories I've heard from before from many different people around the world who have told me I was brought here to do something. I don't know. I'm just telling you what they said. But a lot of people have said the same thing, and it makes me suspicious. How come everybody's saying the same thing to me? I don't know. And so she says to me, she said, they are, no, and then so then she starts laughing, and she's lighting the candles. She's laughing, and I said, "What are you laughing at?" And she said, "Oh, your friends just told me something funny about you. It's kind of funny, and then they told me something about you." I said, "What? What did they tell you about me?" And she said, "Well, they told me a couple of weeks ago you rented a Chrysler convertible and you took off and spent a long weekend up with Joe and Pat up at Area 51 at Rachel." And I said, "Do you know Rachel and Joe and Pat?" She said, "I have no idea in the world. All I know is what they're telling me, that there was a Joe and Pat and you went to Rachel to stay with them for a long weekend. That's what they're telling me. And they're telling me that you drove up in a Chrysler convertible and you went out to where that they had seen you the first time, and they wanted me to tell you that they didn't mean to frighten you. That was not their purpose, was to frighten you and your two friends, and they were apologizing. They didn't mean to frighten you." And I said, "Well, just being in that position and in that kind of company, I was frightened." They said, "Yeah, they know that, but they're apologizing. They didn't mean to frighten you." And she said, "And they are telling me that you sat on the back of your car, on the back trunk, with your feet in the back seat, and you told them that you didn't mind, fulfilling your destiny wherever it might be, but that there were two things that you were asking for favors." And I was amazed listening to this. Nobody knew I did that. Nobody. There's no way she would have known Joe and Pat and the Chrysler convertible. No possible way. Nobody knew that, including Paul. Nobody. But she did, and she knew it all very accurately. And she said, "You sat on the back of the car with your feet in the back seat, and you told them you didn't want to be abducted and go anywhere, and you didn't want to be frightened in your bedroom." And they got a laugh out of that. They thought that was humorous, and they laughed about that. And I said, "Would you ask them, what is it funny about that?" I was frightened as a human. I was frightened. What's so funny about what I asked? And she said, "Well, they're telling me where you have come from." And again, I'm just telling you what she said. I can't validate the truthfulness of what she's saying. I'm just telling you what she said. And she said, "Where you have come from, you don't look like a human. You're here in the human form, but where you have come from, you would be absolutely amazed what you look like where you come from. But we have brought you here and brought you into a human situation so that you can be human here." But and so the idea was, it was funny to them. I don't want to be frightened in my bedroom. And she said, "They're saying, if you only knew what you look like from where you came, that's a joke. You think you will be frightened in your bedroom? You're really going to be frightened when you go back to where you come from and see who you really are and where you've actually come from. You may be here in human form right now, but that's not what you look like where you come from." And they thought that was funny. And then she said, "And they're telling me to tell you they don't intend to harm you, abduct you, or do anything. They will give you knowledge and help you to grow, but they're not going to harm you. They're not going to frighten you." And she says, "So, and incidentally, they're telling me that you don't need to do a past life regression, because that's what I do. They're telling me, just get what you've got to do in this lifetime, get that done right. Don't worry about your past lives. You got something to do in this life, and we're here to make sure you do it. So we're here. You're on a mission, so to speak." And so she said, "So they told me to tell you, just continue your work, and you will do what you've been brought here to do. But you're not from here. We brought you here to do it." And so again, I have to say, because so many Christians and so many people will say, "There it is. See, Jordan is cavorting with demons and devils and all that kind of. He's a demonic, and he's depraved." No, I'm just telling you what the people said. I don't know. I'm just telling you what I saw with two witnesses, a man and a woman, and I'm just telling you what was said by people. I don't know. I can't verify anything. But she did know, Kieran did know all the details, names and places, and what I did in minute detail, she knew. And so I don't know what the story is, but she said, I've come here to do something. And that I have, for lack of a better term, cosmic companions with me. I have cosmic companions with me, is basically what she was saying. And so I'm saying that anyone hearing me tonight talk about this experience that I had up in Area 51 with my two friends, Ivy West and Paul Tice, you can even call and email and go down and see Paul Tice. He has a bookstore in San Diego called the Book Tree, thebooktree.com, and talk to Paul. Call Paul at the booktree.com, which is a huge. He's got a big publishing operation going where he publishes all kinds of off the wall, strange books about magic and UFOs and aliens and all that kind of stuff, paranormal stuff. Talk to Paul. He'll tell you the same story I just told you.
We're out front of the Nellis Air Force Base here in Nevada. Now, there's a very important ET story that takes place here. For those of you who have heard of the former Canadian Defense Minister, the Honorable Paul Hellyer, and you've heard of him talk about tall white aliens and wonder where he got it from, he actually got it from a fellow named Charles Hall, who's a physicist and retired former first-class airman who was stationed here at around 1965 to 1967. He was actually stationed at the Indian Springs Auxiliary Field, which is another area of Nellis, and now it's been named since 2005 to Creech Air Force Base. But what's very interesting about this story is that Charles Hall was stationed here to do weather experiments. And he actually wrote about this in a series of books called Millennial Hospitality, which he originally released as fiction, and then later it came out and said the stories are absolutely true. But what's very interesting about this story is that while he was here, he said that he encountered these tall white ETs that had landed here since the 1950s and had hangars where they would come down and use this as sort of a rest pit stop. And while he was there, they weren't always the nicest guys. They were very intimidating. In fact, they could use a stun pen on you and they could make you just absolutely paralyzed. And they had